Assen, 1993. John Kocinski just crossed the finish line in third place. Podium. One of the most iconic circuits in the world. By any standard, a good day. He didn't think so. On the cool-down lap, he over-revved his engine until it seized and died. Climbed off. Walked away. When the podium ceremony started, he wasn't there. Tech 3 fired him before the trophies were handed out. Third place, fastest lap of the race, gone. Now, before you write him off as just another difficult personality, ask yourself this: how many riders get fired in the morning and signed by another team the same afternoon? How many riders get blacklisted by every team they've ever raced for and still win a world championship? John Kocinski did both. This is the story of the rider nobody liked and everybody feared. Let's talk about the talent first, because none of what comes next makes sense without it. John Kocinski was 17 years old when Yamaha handed him a factory contract. Not a development deal, not a "we'll see how it goes." A full factory ride, at 17, in the AMA Championship. The kind of thing that happens maybe once a decade, when a manufacturer sees something so undeniable they can't look away. He won the AMA 250 cubic centimeter title in 1987, then 1988, then 1989, 3 in a row. And at the 1989 Daytona Supersport race, he started 53rd in a field of 80 riders, and won. Read that again. 53rd. Won. That's not a result. That's a statement. Then came Europe. 1990, his first full Grand Prix season. He'd never raced on most of these circuits. He barely spoke the language. He had no allies, no history, no safety net. Just a Yamaha YZR250 and whatever was going on inside his head. He won 7 races, took 6 pole positions, and walked away with the 250 cubic centimeter world championship. But how he did it, that's what separated him from everyone else. Kocinski wasn't the kind of rider who won by aggression. No late braking, no desperate lunges, no intimidation. He was something far more unsettling, a mathematician on a motorcycle. His entire approach was built around finding the single perfect line through every corner, the exact braking point, the exact arc, the exact exit, and then repeating it with mechanical precision lap after lap until his rivals ran out of answers. You couldn't attack him, because there was nothing to attack. No mistakes, no hesitation, no openings. Racing against Kocinski was like chasing something that simply didn't make errors. And when Tech 3 fired him in 1993, on a Saturday in full view of the paddock, Cagiva called him by Sunday, because they needed someone who could win on their 500 cubic centimeter machine. And there was only one name that made sense. He arrived, took pole, and won. First dry weather 500 cubic centimeters victory in Cagiva's history. Then 1997. Honda handed him the RC45, the most notoriously difficult machine in World Superbike, a bike that had beaten every rider who'd tried it. Kocinski won 9 races and took the championship, Honda's first and only WSB title to this day. The man was simply, undeniably, unreasonably fast. The paddock knew it. The rivals knew it, and not one of them would admit how much that bothered them. Here's the thing about John Kocinski. Every team he ever raced for ended the same way. Not most of them, not several. Every single one. Yamaha, Suzuki, Tech 3, Cagiva, Ducati, Honda. Every relationship, every fresh start, every second chance. All of them ended in conflict. All of them ended with people who never wanted to work with him again. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. But to understand why, you need to understand what the Grand Prix paddock was in the early 1990s. This wasn't the polished, media-trained world of modern MotoGP. This was 60 people living in the same motorhome corridor for 8 months a year, eating together, traveling together, watching each other's bikes get carried back on flatbeds, and people were still dying. In that world, trust wasn't optional. You needed to know how the man next to you would behave when things went wrong. On track, in the garage, under pressure. An unpredictable teammate wasn't just annoying, he was a liability. Nobody could predict Kocinski. He didn't socialize, didn't explain himself, didn't seem to need anyone in the paddock. And his OCD, which he never made a secret of, meant that any deviation from perfection, however small, triggered a response that nobody around him knew how to handle. The incidents speak for themselves. 1991, Laguna Seca. He crashes at the US Grand Prix. Not a serious fall, walks away fine. But he gets in his road car and drives out of the circuit at speed. A police officer tries to pull him over. Kocinski doesn't stop. He gets caught, fined, sentenced to community service. No apology, no explanation. That same year, he tells reporters that any rider who hasn't won the 500 cubic centimeter world championship within 2 years of joining the class should quit racing. He would spend 6 years in the 500 cubic centimeter class without ever winning the title. The paddock never let him forget it. Then Assen, 1993. You already know what happened. 3rd place, fastest lap, destroyed engine, no podium. But what the recap doesn't capture is the atmosphere in that paddock afterward. The looks, the silence, the collective sense that everyone had just watched a man punish himself, and everyone around him, for finishing 3rd at one of the greatest circuits in the world. Tech 3 didn't hesitate. Gone. And then 1997, Sentul, Indonesia. The last race of the season. The championship already in his pocket. His teammate, Aaron Slight, needed to win to secure 2nd place in the standings. A clean 1-2 finish for Honda. Slight passed him on the final lap. Kocinski passed him back, close enough to Slight's front wheel that the New Zealander had to take evasive action to avoid going down. Slight finished 3rd. Honda's 1-2 became a 1-3. Kocinski left the team, left the championship, and once again left behind people who felt they'd been used, discarded, and never quite understood. 5 teams, 5 fallouts, 5 groups of people who watched him ride better than almost anyone on the planet and still couldn't wait for him to leave. That's the contradiction that defined him. The faster he got, the harder he became to be around. And the harder he became to be around, the more people rooted against him, even when he was winning, especially when he was winning. Here's what the drama compilations never tell you. Every team that fell out with Kocinski hired him knowing exactly who he was. Cagiva signed him the same day Tech 3 fired him. Ducati gave him a factory ride in 1996. Honda handed him their most expensive, most difficult motorcycle in 1997. These weren't naive organizations making a blind bet. These were the most sophisticated teams in motorsport with decades of experience handling difficult personalities. They chose him anyway, every time, because when you stripped away the incidents, the fallouts, the police chases, and the destroyed engines, what remained was a rider who could do things nobody else could. And in this sport, that has always been worth something. Then there's the OCD. Kocinski never hid it. His mind demanded perfection. Not as an ambition, but as a biological requirement. 3rd place didn't feel like 3rd place. It felt like failure, processed through a brain that had no mechanism for filing it anywhere else. The engine he destroyed at Assen wasn't an act of spite. It was a man completely overwhelmed by the distance between what happened and what his mind told him should have happened. That doesn't excuse the behavior. but it explains it. And there's a difference. And consider this. The statement he made in 1991 about quitting if you haven't won within 2 years? He spent 6 years in the 500 cubic centimeter class, never won the title. Every season, somewhere in that paddock, someone reminded him of those words. He kept showing up anyway. Whatever you think of John Kocinski, that takes something. Something that doesn't have a simple name and doesn't fit neatly into the story of a man who was just difficult to like. In the history of this sport, there have been riders everyone loved, but nobody feared. There have been riders everyone feared, but nobody loved. Kocinski was the second kind, completely, without exception. He never won the 500 cubic centimeter title. The only thing he ever said actually mattered. He burned every bridge he ever crossed. He left every paddock a little more hostile than he found it. And yet, 9 World Superbike wins in a single season, a championship Honda had chased for a decade, a 250 cubic centimeter title in his first year in Europe, results that still hold up today, 30 years later, against the best riders of his generation. The paddock never forgave him. History didn't need to. Some riders are remembered because everyone loved watching them. Kocinski is remembered because nobody could look away. Not because they wanted to see him win, but because they never knew what he was going to do next. That's not a legacy. That's something rarer. That's fear.